Hello, class. As you guys know, we just finished our long unit on the Revolutionary War, so now it's time to move on. So these next couple days, we'll be focusing on what happened immediately after the revolution, pretty much building up a new government, what systems were put in place, and then how America built off that with the first couple presidencies. Um, so this website right now, if you're looking at this within the next week or two, only has the first couple of slides, but as we go on, I will be adding more slides to accommodate what we do in the classroom. So the objective for this slideshow is to explore the aftermath of the revolution. And a do now question that we started with was, what steps do you think are necessary to create a new government? A lot of um, people in the class were talking about finding a leader, trying to figure out a voting system, what to do with the money, the currency issue. So there's a lot of different things mentioned. Let me go to the next slide. So before the Declaration was even created, states knew um, that we would be fighting for independence, and if we gained our independence, we would need systems in place. So individual states were writing their own constitutions as we were fighting in the Revolutionary War, or even a little bit beforehand, just to prepare for when we gain our independence, try making it a smoother transition. So these state constitutions were based on republicanism, which is where political leaders their receive from the citizens their authority to make and enforce laws. So basically, the leaders are put in place, but they can't run without the support of their people. And then also, what was written was the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. This was basically similar to the First Amendment that we have now, probably led into it. It was written by Thomas Jefferson. It states that the human mind was created to be free and that government control over religious beliefs or worship was tyrannical. As we talked about, tyranny means pretty much like oppression from the leader or oppression from the government. We talked about that in our last unit. So he was saying that a government trying to control what you do with your religion uh, cannot be tolerated. And by 1833, every state followed with a written document saying the same thing. Fun fact about this is that on Thomas Jefferson's tombstone, it says that he was the writer of the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. He started at the University of Virginia, and he helped draft the Declaration of Independence. Nowhere does it say that he was president, so I'm thinking that he was very, very proud of this document that he wanted it to be on his tombstone. Women in this era, they still did not receive full citizenship. It was basically the white male property owners that had the voting privileges. Um, and as we talked about last unit, even though women did help in the Revolutionary War, they still weren't seen as equal to men. So many believe that women should not be directly involved in politics. Although, that was mentioned, there was this ideal of Republican motherhood, which was that women can help with politics without actually being involved in politics. It might sound weird, but when I explain it, it will make more sense. So they could basically influence politics and society through being at home, pretty much being at home with the children, because they saw that the next generation will be the ones that will be involved in the future politics. So they would offer moral guidance and promote principles of liberty, democracy, and civic responsibility. And they would teach that to the children, and then the children eventually would put those ideals into society. And this actually led to more opportunities for women because in order to pass this on to their children, the women had to be educated themselves. So this led to more educational opportunities for women. All right. So what was put in place after the Revolutionary War? Our first kind of draft of any form of a constitution was the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation if we look at it now, it might not seem ideal for what they needed, but at the time, it kind of seemed like what they wanted. So it was drafted by John Dickinson. It was a plan for a new central government. It guaranteed each state with sovereignty, freedom, and independence. So the Articles of Confederation really focused on states' rights. That was the main emphasis of the Articles. And all governmental powers not directly given to the central government was given to the states. So in the Articles of Confederation, there were specific powers that the central government didn't have. So anything not mentioned in the Articles for the central government goes to the states. So now you can see why the states would have a lot of power when it comes to that. So some things that Congress or the central government could do would be borrow or coin money. They could conduct foreign affairs, set policy towards American Indians, and settle disputes among states. That kind of makes sense because an individual state might not be able to impose a solution with another state without being biased. So Congress would pretty much deal with like um, uh, issues involving a couple states, kind of policy towards American Indians. There's American Indians in multiple states at this time. So Congress couldn't require the states to contribute money to the central government. So they could borrow or coin money, but they couldn't tax the states, which we will find out it will be an issue. It's pretty hard to run a country when the central government is having money issues. And they couldn't require the states to provide recruits for the military. So this also is another issue because it makes it harder to form like an American military. It's just these individual state militias. So the strengths of the Articles of Confederation um, was an attempt at it was an attempt at a central government. It needed improvement, but it really was um, just showing that the newly freed colonists were prepared to kind of start running the country on their own. And it settled land disputes. Two examples of that were the Land Ordinance and the Northwest Ordinance. So the Land Ordinance marked land into townships and divided towns into 640-acre tracts. And the Northwest Ordinance established a system for governing the Northwest Territory. So the Northwest Territory, as we saw, was acquired at the end of the Revolution. Um, at the end of the Revolution, um, and it was gained, but there were no really settlers in there at this time. So the government had to come in and turn that into townships once there was enough people in there, and then helped set up state governments or local governments in that area. So the weaknesses, as we talked about, what it couldn't do, there's no executive branch. Congress was very weak. It had a hard time passing laws. It couldn't set up a military. It couldn't collect taxes. So there's basically just a whole bunch of individual states. So rather than being the United States of America, like one collective unit, it was really just a whole bunch of different, um, just a whole bunch of different states not really seeing eye to eye, but the only thing that they have in common is they just won their freedom. So tune in to the next slide to see what happens next.